10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 165. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 165 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Hope you've had a great week and welcome into a brand new lesson. I'm going to go over some double time lines today. Very excited about it. Before we get into it, a couple of housekeeping items. Just so you know, you can get the PDF to this episode and all the other episodes that we've ever done here on the show by going to our Patreon site. You can pledge $3 a month to get all the PDFs and a bunch of other fantastic extras, including discounts on our products and a lot of other things that you're going to want to get your hands on. It also allows you to support the podcast and make sure it keeps coming at you week after week in high quality, so you can feel good about that. Before we jump in, I wanted to thank our new patrons for the week. Thank you to Duff, Ben, and Peter. Thank you guys for signing up to become part of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson family, and I hope you are enjoying your benefits from your Patreon membership. And of course, as always, thanks to everybody else over there who has donated. Now, we also have another very exciting announcement that I've been furiously working towards to bring you guys, and that is our Next Level Blues course. This is going to be a fantastic course for everybody out there who feels like they're ready for some new sounds over the blues. This course is going to get your playing to the next level, and as you know, the blues is kind of a microcosm for the entire jazz language. So this course is designed to use a simple form like the blues to improve your playing over every tune you will ever play. So keep your ears open for that release date. It's going to be coming in the next week or two, and I'm going to put out a special episode that kind of talks about some of the things that we are doing in that course to help bring your playing to that next level, hence the title, the Next Level Blues Course. So anybody out there who purchased 60 Days to Crushing the Blues, this is kind of the follow-up course to that. It's much more in-depth, and it's going to push your playing to those new heights. So keep your ears tuned for more information on that. I'm very excited. I've been working over the past about 4 to 5 months getting this course ready. It's going to have over 2 hours of video. It's going to have worksheets for concert instruments, B-flat, E-flat, and bass clef instruments, and I'm just very excited to present this to you. So keep your eyes out for a special episode where we'll talk about some of those concepts. All right, let's jump into today's episode. So this week's episode is all about starting to develop your ability to play double time. And this is a very in-depth concept that a lot of people get stuck on. And again, this episode originated from the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook group, where one of our fantastic members, Barb, asked this question, asked if I could do an episode on this. So again, that is the place to get in touch if there's a specific topic that you would like discussed on the show. So Barb asked a question, and now we're doing a couple of episodes on it. There you go. Thanks to Barb for asking that question, and hopefully this helps. So playing double time is a really tricky thing. So what we're going to do on this week's episode is talk about some of the distinctions between playing eighth notes and playing 16th notes over a swing feel. Now, I've chosen the swing feel because, the majority of the stuff we're going to play is a swing feel, and there are some differences between playing eighth notes and playing 16th notes when we're swinging. So the first one is that the 16th notes do not swing. So when you're playing notes that are this close together, like imagine you're playing at a medium swing tempo and you want to start playing some 16th notes over it, they don't swing. They're too close together. We cannot swing these notes. So that's the first distinction that we have to make. And it feels kind of funny at first to be playing even notes over a swing feel, but you have to understand that when you're playing double time, we do transition into that even feel. So that's the first thing that we're going to work on. Now, the second thing is we've talked a lot on this show about jazz articulation and articulating your eighth notes and some of the things that go into having a good feel when you're swinging and you're playing eighth notes, which is kind of the majority of the notes that we're going to play for most of us. Now, when we start playing double time, that also kind of has to go out the window. And we have to figure out how to play really smooth lines. Because again, these lines just go by too fast. There's too many notes for us to do much with the articulation. So we have to basically remove our tongue from the situation unless we have practiced articulation, so much that we can actually tongue these notes. And if you're an instrumentalist who does not play a wind instrument, you still do have to think about how you articulate these notes, right? Because I'm sure it's going to be very different. Whether you play piano, whether you play guitar, you are going to have to smooth out the lines to make these sound correct. So what we're going to go over in today's episode is some exercises to get you started, just to get you to feel what it's like to play some double time lines. We're not going to do anything over tunes yet. That's not where we're at. Again, just like every really cool concept in jazz improvisation, the exercises that we start with are pretty unsexy, and that's exactly what we're doing here. We're just going to go over some really basic stuff that is really going to set you up for some really impressive playing in the future. So if you look at your PDF, basically what I'm doing is I am working with two forms of the bebop scale, the dominant bebop scale and the major bebop scale. And I'm simply just going to practice going back and forth between eighth notes and 16th notes at a slow tempo, and just get the feel for transitioning between both of those. Because if you think about it, when you are playing double time in real life, you're not going to be playing like an entire chorus of double time. First of all, that's just not going to sound that interesting. A flurry of notes being thrown at you is only interesting for so long, and then we have to break it up rhythmically with some single time stuff or, other rhythms. So we're just going to practice our transitions because that's going to be a big part of fluidly putting this into your playing. So the tool that I love to use, and I actually like to use this more than a metronome in this situation, is the app Drum Genius. Drum Genius is the coolest app because it's like having your own personal drummer where you can tell them exactly what tempo to play, exactly what feel you would like them to play. You set the app and it goes. So I'm going to use a slow swing feel on Drum Genius. And I'm going to practice these exercises. Oh, one more note. Why am I using bebop scales and not just regular scales? Because bebop scales have that extra chromatic note that actually line up the downbeats, right? So if I'm playing, for example, the first example is a G7 bebop scale. I can play up and down that scale with the root or the tonic lined up on both downbeats. And the same thing goes for the major bebop scale. So that's why I'm using these, because I want to practice something simple, but I need it to line up with the downbeats to give me that sense of evenness from where I start and where I end. So if you look at example 1, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the bebop scale up and down one time in eighth notes. And then I'm going to transition over, play the exact same thing, but in half the amount of time. So I'm just going to play the exact same exercise, but I'm going to play it in 16th notes. And what this is going to do is it's going to show you what you need to do differently in order to play the 16th notes as opposed to those eighth notes back to back from each other. So I'm just going to go ahead and play the eighth notes with a good time feel, nice and swinging. And then I'm going to transition into the 16th notes. And what you'll notice is, first of all, they straighten out. Second of all, you're going to want to rush. You're going to want to rush through these 16th notes, but you have to hold back a little bit and make sure they are just as even as the eighth notes, even though we're playing twice the amount of notes in the same period of time that we were when we were playing the eighth notes. The second thing is that you will notice is my articulation changes drastically. In the eighth note measure, I'm going to be doing my thing. I'm going to be tonguing. I'm going to be accenting certain notes. And in the double time example, basically all that goes away. What I'm really concentrated on during the 16th note lines is just getting them to line up with the beat, making sure that I'm in time. That should be your first and only thought for right now. Now, I'm also setting Drum Genius at 80 BPM. I feel like that's a pretty good place to start. It's not ballad tempo, it's kind of just above ballad tempo, where we can really swing on the eighth notes, and then we are forced to confront the problems with playing double time over the 16th note measures. So let's check out this example. So, a couple of things that you could hear that I want you to think about. The first time that I played that, I was rushing the double time line. And as I played it again and again, it started to settle in, and it really started to be more in time each time I played it, the third time being the best one. Go back and listen to that again if you can hear the fact that I was totally rushing on the first one. Now, the first time you do this, especially if you've never played double time before, first couple of times you try to play that double time, it is going to sound horrible. Just get through that part of it. Don't worry about it. Everybody sounds horrible the first time that they try to do that. Don't worry about it. Keep at it. And eventually it will start to even out. Now, the thing about wind instruments is that our articulation really helps us to even out the notes. Our tongue can kind of be used as a crutch, right? Because it's a very coordinated muscle that we're very good at using. Think about all the things that I'm doing with my tongue right now when I'm speaking with you. Extremely coordinated, specialized muscle. Your fingers, on the other hand, all 10 fingers, if you're playing something like the saxophone, not so coordinated. So when we're playing double time, we're really relying on our fingers for the evenness. So this is going to spotlight a lot of the inconsistencies that you might have with your digits, okay? But you've got to start exposing those weaknesses, and you've got to start evening them out if you ever want to be able to do this in real life. Okay, so what I want you to do is I want you to take those dominant bebop scales and the major bebop scales through several different keys doing this exact exercise. Now, the thing about it is when you're just playing the scales, it's actually going to be easier for you to do them at a fast tempo for most people than it is going to be at like 80 BPM like I just did. Make sure you do it at the slow tempo because it's actually harder. You actually have to think about being as even as possible instead of just moving your fingers as quickly as you possibly can. So make sure you're practicing them at slow tempos. And I truly do recommend using Drum Genius because it's going to give you the feeling of playing those straight notes while the drummer is playing a traditional swing pattern. So that's why I like to use Drum Genius on this instead of a metronome. You could still do it with a metronome, but I do find that Drum Genius is really, really helpful in this regard. So next week on the show, we'll actually start talking about how you can put your double time in real life situations over tunes, good spots to look for when you want to start introducing that double time feel that will build on itself, allowing you to use a lot more of these lines. But for now, I need you to just get used to the feeling of playing 16th notes over a swing feel. That is step number one. Do not skip that. You will fail if you try to pull off a double time line at a gig and you haven't practiced these exercises that I've given you today. So start there. Start getting used to playing these 16th notes in several different keys and make them even. That's going to be a really important part. Double time lines are only effective if they're in time. All right, that's going to do it for today. If you've got any questions, shoot them at me on the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook group. Thank you to Barb for this suggestion. I think a lot of people are going to really like this episode, as many people are trying to do the same thing that you are, Barb, and get their double time playing together. All right, we'll talk to you next week with some brand new episodes. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.